This is going to be a really interesting video where we're going to learn to use Dialogflow. Dialogflow is a product created by Google before it was a standalone product, but now it's part of Google Cloud. And this helps us create conversational experiences. In simple terms, it helps us create chatbots or user interfaces where we can interact with. And this uses artificial intelligence and machine learning created by Google, but we can make use of this without any programming or coding experience in any type of language. This is very simple to use and it takes care of all the heavy work for us. So this is the product page, and I am going to go to this documentation in this second URL, and I'm going to open the ES console. There are two different consoles. One is for more advanced projects. Before it was only one, so this came around 2 months back, but today we're going to be focusing on the standard console. So all you need to get started with Dialogflow is a Google account. So it's going to prompt you to sign in with the Google account. You can do so. So once you've signed in, it should take you to a page where it asks you to create a new project. Since I've already created a project, I'm going to manually say create new agent, and it should be in a page like this. So the first thing you need to do is give it an agent name. So I'm just gonna call this YouTube-test. My language, I'm gonna stick with English, and your time zone can be anything you want. Let's see. I'm just going to select New York, and then since it's part of Google Cloud, your agent is going to be linked with a GCP project, with a Google Cloud project. So if you don't know anything about Google Cloud project, that's okay. We don't need to touch that. Now we're going to hit create. So once it's done creating our agent for us, we're going to be taken to a page where we can see a list of intents. So our agent has been created and we are in the intents page. So I'm going to explain everything you can see on the screen right now so that it's extremely clear. So we are in the intents page over here. So this is this tab here. Now we can see two intents currently. One is our default welcome intent and one is our default fallback intent. So these two are created out of the box for us. We can delete them, customize them, or create our own. So the next thing you can see is entities over here. Now I'll be explaining this once we finish the intents. So to explain it to you, I'm first going to open up the default welcome intent. And the first thing you can see is context. So this is minimized right now. I'm going to open it. And this is asking us for an input context and an output context. Now the reason we're going to leave this blank is this is the first thing that is triggered. Right now it's a default welcome intent for us. That means when we are creating our agent, this is the first thing our agent tells us. It welcomes us with this intent. So either if we say hi, hello, or something like that where we're greeting the agent, it's going to respond back with these responses. Or if we are using something like Google Assistant where we're opening up the agent or the chatbot for the first time, it's going to greet us with this response without asking any input. Now the first thing you need to know is training phrases. So since this uses machine learning and AI, this is this type of agent that we're creating, it can accept multiple responses. So we're going to give it a couple of responses. Usually we give more than 10 responses, and the machine learning model is trained behind the scenes. So even if you give a typo, if there's a spelling mistake, or if you say something that is not in this list of responses, it still has the capability to understand that the intent, the meaning is the same, and match this intent. So once this intent is matched, it gives one of these responses or one of a random response, so that even though the same intent is triggered multiple times, it doesn't give the same response again and again, because that's what a human being would do. So there are a few other things that we can do over here. We can set actions and parameters. So we can extract different values or different entities from our user's response. So for example, if the user says my name is so and so, we can say hello so and so. So we can extract their name and we know that's an entity. We can identify that using Dialogflow. So those are the few things that we're going to do. And our fallback intent has been created. This is an intent that is matched if no other intent is matched. So for example, if we don't understand what the user is typing, then the default fallback intent is identified and the response comes from that. So if we don't understand what the user is telling, this is one of the responses that is going to be given out. So what we're going to do is create a new intent. So we need to give an intent name. So I'm going to just call this what is your name. So we don't want to add any context because this is not going to be any type of follow-up conversation. And the only reason we would be touching context if it's a very complex conversational flow, or else Dialogflow takes care of that for us. We're not going to be touching events also because there's no event that we want to listen to or trigger, but we're going to be adding training phrases. So we have to add a couple of training phrases. For example, one could be just, what is your name? One could be just name. One could be a little shorter. One could be like this. So we're going to give a different type of responses that we could accept. So depending on this, the machine learning model is trained and it identifies what type of intent this is and what the meaning of the sentence is. So it does have basic English grammar built in, and we don't have to worry about all that. So once we've given a list of training phrases, we can look at actions and parameters. So there's no really value that we need to extract from this, so I'm going to leave this blank. But we're going to be giving responses. So a couple of responses that we could create. Hi, my name is Test. Another could be, hello, I'm Test. So just a couple of responses. Now the responses are always going to be from this list. A random response is going to be selected. Nothing out of this list is going to be given. And we do have an option to set this intent as the end of the conversation. So if this intent is activated, then the Dialogflow agent is going to exit and close. It's going to close this session. The next thing we have is fulfillment, and we're not going to use fulfillment. The way fulfillment basically works is if our Dialogflow agent has to request any third-party data. So for example, if we're asking our agent what is the weather, we there's no way from this console that we can fetch the weather and give it back to the user. So we could use another web service, we could call it, and anytime the user asks what's the weather, we could call a separate service, ask them what's the weather, and then pass on the data to the user. So that's what we use fulfillment for. So once we're done with this, we're going to hit save. Intent is saved and it should trigger the training of the agent. So we can see that the agent training has started. And we could see this gear icon is spinning over here. Now I told you that we can extract different entities. So I'm going to create a new intent to do that. And we could call this user telling their name. So over here I'm going to, no, actually this is a bad idea because it's the second time we're talking about a name. We could call this maybe internet not working. So all one more thing to know is all intents, the name of the intent has to be specific. They can be duplicated. Now we're going to add a few training phrases. So for example, my internet is not working. Internet isn't working. Internet stop working. So so many ways we can do this. And once we add this, we could add a parameter manually here, or it could be added as part of a training phrase. For example, my internet stopped working yesterday. So when I hit enter, you can see that Dialogflow automatically identifies that a parameter is present or it matches an entity which is part of system.datetime. So Dialogflow has a few default entities that we can make use of, and it's automatically identified this. So it's been added to our list of parameters over here, and the name of the parameter is datetime. Now what we could do is mark this required, so that if the user doesn't specify a date or time, that we prompt them. So we can define our prompts over here. So we can say, please tell me when your internet stop working. We could add multiple prompts again here so that it gives a different prompt every time, and we're just going to close it. Another option is to give a list. For example, if the user has to provide multiple dates, then we could tick this option, which is just a boolean is list. So now the user has two options. They could just say my internet doesn't work anymore, or they could say my internet doesn't work and they could provide a date. If they provide a date, great. If they don't provide a date, we're going to ask them for the date. So already we are up to seeing some complex conversational flow, and now we're going to give back a response. Now our response can just be a standard response, or we can include the value that we have extracted, which is our date time. Now I could just acknowledge this by saying, okay, I understand your internet stopped working on, and now I can use this parameter value by using this dollar sign, and I can see that see a drop down over here with date time. So this is the only parameter that we're extracting, so this is the only thing that shows up, and I can click this to add it in. Now I can again add multiple responses, but I'm not going to do that. I don't want to set this intent as the end of the conversation because I want to have more to come, and I'm just going to hit save. Again, fulfillment is out of the scope of this video, but we could do that in the future. So the intent is saved. It's going to trigger the training, and at any point of time, so I'm just going to wait over here. This seems done. Just going to save again. So at any point of time, we can test out our agent in this test console on the right side. So I'm going to say hi, and we should be able to see the default response or the default welcome intent being triggered. Now when I ask it what is your name, or let's make a spelling mistake, just YOR, what is your name, it identifies what intent we are triggering, which is what is your name. It shows over here and it provides back a response. Now I'm just gonna ask the same thing again, and we should see a different response this time. So you see this time, instead of saying just my name is, we can say hello, I'm Test. So it randomly selects a different response. Now I'm going to trigger this internet not working. Or before that, let's trigger the default fallback intent. I'm going to say how are you. So it says I didn't get that, can you repeat? That's because we've not created our agent to accept a response like that. So now we're going to try to trigger our internet not working intent. Now we're going to do that by saying my internet stopped working last week this time, let's say. So we are providing a date. So it says, okay, I understand your internet stopped working on 2020 12/27, and then provides a response. So it was a week. We provided a week, so it's giving us 2 dates actually. It's giving us a range. Now we could say just my internet isn't working, and now it asks, please tell me when your internet stopped working, and then I can say yesterday. So now it says yesterday's date, which was, as the time of this recording, the 6th of Jan. So you can see this type of flow that we're creating, and this helps us a lot when we're creating complex agents. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce this concept of context. So we're not going to work with manually adding context, but Dialogflow has this built-in feature where we can add follow-up intents. So I'm going to add a follow-up intent to this internet not working, and I'm going to select a custom intent. So there are a few other options that we can use, for example, yes, no, fallback, later, cancel. So if we select one of these default intents, then it's going to pre-populate our responses for us. But I'm just going to stick with custom. So you could say this, kind of sub intent which comes under this. So this intent is triggered only if this is triggered. So I'm going to open up the first intent again, and you can see that the context has been added. You can see a context and you can see a lifespan. So just remember the name of this output context. It's called internet not working dash follow-up. Now I'm going to go back to the main page and I'm going to open this sub intent. And here you can see the same output context that we saw in that intent has been added to the input context of this intent. So we can start to understand how context works. So for example, if you asked something like, tell me a joke, and then the agent asks, what type of joke do you want to hear? And we say any joke. Well, if you said any joke to someone out of context randomly, no one's going to understand what you mean. You only understand it in the context with respect to the previous conversation. So we're just referencing our previous conversation over here. And another thing to notice, we're adding this lifespan number of here. So currently it's 2. For example, if we increase it to 5, even if the user says 4, rubbish responses, if the 5th response makes sense and if the sub intent is triggered, we're going to be fine. But if we set a very low lifespan, then if the Dialogflow agent doesn't understand what we're talking about, it's just going to go back to our default fallback intent, which is this. So I'm going to start working on my custom intent. So this intent is only going to trigger when some of the training phrases are identified. So we could say, when is it going to be repaired? When are you going to fix it? And then we could say, we don't have a specific time period at the moment. So very simple. I'm just going to save this. But the thing I want to explain over here is, so I'm gonna So the thing I want to explain over here is, this is a follow-up intent to this intent. So it's impossible to trigger this outside any context when we just start. So for example, if I just said, when are you going to fix it? We don't understand. It triggers the fallback intent. But if we say, my internet stopped working last week, and then if I said, when are you going to fix it? Then we see the correct response, which is, we don't have a specific time period at the moment. So now we are able to create follow-up intents that only work within a specific context. So we've created all this, these different conversational flows. So now I'm going to explain to you the rest of the console. So I'm going to go into this entities tab, and we should be able to see 2 tabs over here, custom and system. So system already has a couple default entities, for example, date or a name of person, different type of entities. And we also can create our own custom entities that we want to trigger. Knowledge is a beta feature, so I'm not going to be focusing on this. Next we have fulfillment, which I explained to you. So whenever our intent requires fulfillment, it reaches out, it makes a call to an external web service, gets back data from that, and gives it back to our users. This integrations tab helps us integrate it with different third-party services. The most common and popular one is Google Assistant. So if you've seen apps or chatbots on Google Assistant, which you can talk to it, it's all built with Dialogflow. And you can do that also. It's free, and it's extremely simple. You can also do telephony. You can connect this using Dialogflow phone gateway. So you can connect Dialogflow to a phone number and actually talk to your agent. So there are so many other integrations you can do. You can, just create this a web demo where you can just share with your friends and family a website where they can chat with it. You can integrate with Hangouts chat, Slack, Telegram, Facebook Messenger, Skype, Twitter. There are so many things you can integrate it with, and people are never going to know that it's part of Dialogflow. And you can upload all the different text that your agent should be capable of handling, and you can provide a list of responses that it should give. So the machine learning model trains behind the scenes with this. So this is a way to train in bulk or train in mass and quickly get your agent production ready. You also have a validation tab where you see how often your agent is successful and when it's providing errors. You can see the history of your conversation and an analytics tab, which is going to be empty for us right now. There's also an option for you to create a pre-built agent out of the box so that you don't have to create each and every intent by yourself. You just have to customize it. And there's also a small talk feature where all you have to do is answer a couple of questions and the Dialogflow agent gives the appropriate response for you. So the last thing I'm going to do is show you how to do a simple integration with the web. So I'm going to go over here to web demo. I'm going to enable this. And I'm going to copy this link address, or I could copy this iframe and paste it in my HTML code of any website. So I'm not going to focus on HTML today. I'm just going to copy this link, and I should be able to see my agent if I paste this into a browser. So I can see this page created by Dialogflow, and I can see my agent over here. Now the cool part of this is we can also access this with voice. So if I just say hi, we should be able to see the response from our agent. Greetings, how can I assist? Then I could say, what is your name, dude? We can see our internet has been correctly triggered. Now we can say, my internet isn't working. Please help me. Now again, there's a few mistakes over here and we never had a sentence like this, but it should trigger correctly. So now we say, please tell me when your internet stopped working. Now this is working correctly because we need to know a date and we didn't specify a date. So it's asking us for the date again. Now if we tell something useless, for example, I don't know, it's going to again ask us, please tell me when your internet stopped working. Now of course we could provide a different type of response, but we didn't. Now I'm just gonna say the correct date. Now I'm gonna say maybe 2nd Jan. So now it currently identifies. So even though we said 2nd Jan, in the correct date format, it was able to identify it and say, okay, I understand your internet stopped working on the 2nd of Jan. And another thing I want to mention is this date format might not be what you like, but this is what you get to Dialogflow. If you want a custom date format, you have to send back your response to an external service. It has to process your data for you and send it back. So anyways, this can be embedded in a website with an iframe that is completely custom. You could just share this website with your friends and family. So that wraps up this quick Dialogflow tutorial. If you are interested, if you like this, please let me know in the comments below. And if you would like to see further integrations or further advanced topics to Dialogflow, I would be happy to do so. Thank you for watching. Another thing I forgot to mention is that in the Google Assistant integration part, you can select test and you can test your Dialogflow agent from your Google Assistant app by saying, okay Google, talk to my test app. The only thing you need to do is to make sure you're logged in with the same Google account in your Dialogflow agent and on your mobile phone.